Breaking news. War experts say Ukraine has three choices since Putin won't give up. Peace negotiations aren't. The conflict in Ukraine has reached a standstill after just over a year of combat. Both parties have incurred significant casualties, but Russia has fared particularly badly, suffering a succession of humiliating defeats on the battlefield and failing to achieve its larger objectives. Nonetheless, Russian President Vladimir Putin shows no indications of relenting as his troops press for wins in the eastern towns of Bakhmut and Avdiivka, according to a new report from the Institute for the Study of War, ISW. In the face of such obstinacy, Ukraine has three relatively simple options, and quick peace negotiations are not one of them. This would be an appropriate time for Putin to conclude that Russia cannot impose its will on Ukraine through force and that a compromise solution is required. He has clearly not reached that conclusion, ISW said. In this situation, one choice for Ukraine is to cease battling even as Russia maintains ground and aviation assaults, which ISW claims would lead to disastrous defeat. The second possible strategy is for Ukrainian troops to battle in a very constrained manner, with the aim of retaining the area they presently control. This, however, would encourage Putin to pursue outright military victory. The third option is for Ukraine to launch successive counter-offensive operations with the twin goals of convincing Putin to accept a negotiated compromise or creating military realities favorable to Ukraine so that Kyiv and its Western allies can then effectively freeze the conflict on their own, regardless of Putin's decisions. Ukraine has continued to protect Bakhmut, which has seen some of the bloodiest combat in recent months, despite the fact that experts believe the city has little strategic importance. Some military specialists contend that Kyiv's personnel and resources should not be wasted on Bakhmut and should instead be saved for a counteroffensive. According to ISW, Ukraine requires numerous significant tactical wins to open the door to talks or for Putin to accept unfavorable military realities in the absence of a formal settlement. Some observers have voiced worry that even if Kyiv and Moscow achieved a mediated resolution that resulted in a halt of fighting, Russia would simply reorganize and restart its drive for Ukraine's complete subjection later on. As a result, according to ISW, Ukraine will need to reclaim territory that is critical to its existence both military and fiscally, and this will be critical to renewed Russian offensives. Though Kiev has repeatedly stated that it will not agree to any terms that require it to cede territory to Russia, ISW stated that there is likely a line short of the full restoration of Ukrainian control over all of occupied Ukrainian territory that could be the basis for a protracted cessation of hostilities on terms acceptable to Ukraine and the West, emphasizing that this line is far from where the current front lines stand. Putin's Belarus nuclear move contradicts China's pledge, while Russian President Vladimir Putin's proposal to deploy nuclear weapons in nearby Belarus is unlikely to alter Europe's geopolitical equilibrium. It contradicts a promise he made just days earlier with Chinese rival Xi Jinping. In a joint declaration issued at the conclusion of Xi's visit to Moscow last week, Russia and China proclaimed that all nuclear weapon states should refrain from deploying nuclear weapons abroad. Then, late Saturday, Putin declared on state television that Russia will station tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus for the first time since the Soviet Union's demise, while insisting that the move would not violate Moscow's non-proliferation promises. Putin's statement casts doubt on the outcome of his meeting with Xi, said Tariq Rauf, the former nuclear non-proliferation head of the International Atomic Energy Agency. He appears to be nuclear signaling to a domestic audience, attempting to reassure his own people that Russia is fine, that the war in Ukraine is proceeding normally. According to non-proliferation experts, there are no technological obstacles stopping Russia from sending weaponry to protect Belarusian shelters by July. Putin stated that storing sites would be available by July 1, but he did not specify when Russia would deliver nuclear weapons to its allies' land. His effort to increase tensions with the US and NATO over Russia's conflict in Ukraine was met with skepticism in Washington and among Kyiv's supporters in Eastern European countries bordering Belarus. Officials in Poland and the Baltic states condemned Moscow's newest nuclear threats, while maintaining that any deployment, if it occurs, would be mainly symbolic in terms of security. Why Putin's tactical, nuclear threats should concern us. Quick take. Russian nuclear weapons are already stationed in Kaliningrad, a Russian exclave situated between Poland and Lithuania, where they are physically closer to military objectives in the Baltic Sea and Western Europe than they would be in Belarus. With Russian forces trapped in eastern Ukraine, Xi's three-day journey to Moscow was by far the most important since Putin launched the incursion more than 13 months ago, resulting in a rush of economic and military deals. Putin's plan to restore nuclear weapons to Belarus indicates that Beijing and Moscow may perceive their obligations differently, according to former U.S. Ambassador Michael McFaul, who said it demonstrated a lack of regard for Xi. Under the current circumstances, all parties must focus on diplomatic efforts toward a peaceful resolution of the Ukraine crisis and collaborate for de-escalation, China's Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning said Monday, adding that nuclear war should never be fought and cannot be won. Belarus has readied 10 planes capable of carrying nuclear weaponry, according to Putin. Russian Iskander short-range missiles capable of delivering nuclear weapons have also been delivered to Belarus, and personnel training will commence there on April 3, he said on state television. During the Cold War, Belarus, as part of the Soviet Union, kept a large number of transportable bombs and tactical nuclear weapons at different locations. According to Robert Kelly, a retired U.S. nuclear weapons expert and intelligence researcher, the technical hurdles to revitalizing that infrastructure are minimal. It's really just about security, and if you're heavy on guns and guards, it won't be much an issue, he said, adding that the choice to deploy in Belarus is a political one unrelated to the conflict in Ukraine. He claims that the Belarusian military airport of Baranovichi has infrastructure that can be rapidly changed to house weaponry. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko permitted Putin to use his country's land to start Russia's attack of Ukraine in February last year, and he has repeatedly backed Putin's activities while refusing to allow his own military to participate in the conflict. Why Belarus supports Russia in Ukraine? A quick take: Putin justified his choice to relocate nuclear weapons to Belarus by claiming that the U.S. had long stationed them in NATO member nations. Germany and the Netherlands are two of the United States' nuclear partners. Finland may also reconsider its nuclear strategy after finishing its NATO participation. Russia is displaying weakness, not strength, Lithuanian Foreign Minister Gabrielius Landsbergis tweeted. Serious sanctions, troop deployments in the Baltics, and more air-sea defense systems on NATO's eastern flank would send a message of solidarity and determination, rather than fear and evasion.